Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. We have a great show for you as we head into the weekend. First, Barry Morphew. He's been released. That's right. He posted bond on his murder trial here in Colorado. Remains that are presumed to belong to Travis Decker have been discovered in the Washington wilderness. We've got some audio recordings of the suspect in the Charlie Kirk case. They surfaced online. The man who attempted to kill Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh apparently identifies now as a transgender woman and is deeply mentally ill and suicidal, according to some court records. David abruptly halts his U.S. tour amidst ongoing probe into the teenager's gruesome demise that was found in the trunk of his car. A wannabe stunt driver leaps over a rising bridge. We've got a Brooklyn Bodega's Valiant heroes versus the charming local icon. This day in legal history, we have a legal quote about eyewitnesses that goes back to 184 BC. And then finally, our dumb criminal of the day. Let's talk about it.
All right, lawyer.
Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for watching us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't. Like if you do. Leave me a comment below, hit that little bell for notifications, and yes, you can check us out anytime on any of your favorite podcasting apps. Before we get to the docket, a couple of quick reminders. Hey, if you want to check somebody out, you're not sure how to do it, you don't want to go hire a private investigator, go to crimetalksearch.com. When you sign up, you can do as many background searches as you desire on anyone here in the United States, and it is going to give you a comprehensive report about this individual, property that they own, places that they lived, emails, phone numbers, social media presence, criminal history, everything that you want to know about somebody, you can find out. Simple search, literally done while you wait. Go to crimetalksearch.com. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we talked about this the other day. You know, we told you we went to CrimeCon. We came up with a little giveaway. Well, that was for CrimeCon. Now I got a stack of these things left over. And guess what? You can have one too. So if you go to the link below, it'll take you over to scottreich.com. You can order one of these little bad boys, little keychain there. It says Crime Talk and says Crime Talk on this side too. You can use it as a keychain, put it on your bag to identify your luggage when it comes off the carousel. Anything you want to use it for. And frankly, it's just really cool. And if you're an aficionado, why would you not want one, right? So go to the little icon there. It's $5 for the keychain, and then the shipping and handling, we'll get it to you within a day or two from the time that we get the order. We'll ship it out. So thanks for Frank for setting that up. Appreciate that. Go to the link below and I'll take you over to scottreich.com. All right, let's go ahead and open the record for Friday, September 19th. And first on the docket, that's right, Barry Morphew has been released on bond pending his murder trial. Now, for those who aren't familiar with the case, Barry Morphew is charged with first-degree murder regarding the death of his wife, Suzanne Morphew, and he has secured his release from custody by posting $3 million in bonds. And that, my friends, is all it takes to get out of jail when you're charged with murder. $3 million worth of collateral. So for those who are not familiar with the case, Suzanne Morphew disappeared back in May of 2020 during a bike ride and did not return. That was Mother's Day, ladies and gentlemen. Her remains were discovered in 2023 in a shallow grave near Highway 17 in Saguache County, with an autopsy revealing the presence of a deer tranquilizer mixture in her system. That's right. And police noted that the prescription records indicate that Barry Morphew, as the sole local resident with access to this particular substance, they refer to it as called BAM. Initially charged back in 2021 regarding the death of his wife, the 11th Judicial District, evidence tampering and attempt to influence a public official. Now, those accusations were dismissed in 2022 following the determination of homicide in 2024. A grand jury in a different judicial district, the 12th Judicial District, indicted Barry Morphew in June of this year, obviously leading to his arrest. He was arrested in Arizona, going by Lee. Obviously, he's been in custody since then. So in early September, at a status hearing, Morphew's legal team sought to reduce the $3 million bond cash-only bond to $500,000 bond. The chief judge, Amanda Hopkins, rejected the reduction, but adjusted the terms to allow cash, surety, or property options, effectively requiring Morphew to secure $300,000 for his release. The judge cited factors supporting the modification, including Morphew's lack of prior criminal history, family support from his daughters and mother, consistent compliance with the court's directive back in 2021, and he apparently is a low risk of flight or further offenses. Now, the counterbalancing concerns included his mobility and ability to relocate quite discreetly, though his prompt arrest in Arizona and the ongoing communications with his attorneys mitigated those particular risks. Now, by mid-September of 2025, supporters and friends funded the bond through a private agreement with a bondsman, as confirmed by the attorney, David Beller. Now, the exact amount raised remains undisclosed. Now, we talked about this quite extensively on a live program a couple of weeks ago. The process of obviously posting $3 million in cash. Property usually requires 1.5 times the value of the property, so $4.5 million. To post that, or surety, which means you go through a bail bondsman. You usually pay them a premium of about 10%, hence $300,000 on a $3 million bond. But the catch is you have to have $3 million in collateral, because if you do skip town, the bondsman's going to come hunt you down. However, if you don't and they can't find you, they take the collateral, sell it to pay the court for the bond. Be curious to see if we can get access to the bond paperwork once it is complete. Now, his release conditions. Upon release, Barry Morphew must wear a GPS ankle monitor for continuous tracking and is prohibited from leaving the state of Colorado. There is a protective order in place that bars contact with case victims, possession of a firearm or ammunition, and obviously he cannot consume any alcohol or controlled substances, though interaction with his daughters is permitted. The judge emphasized that the bond structure places $300,000 at risk, incentivizing compliance as a bondsman would pursue any attempted evasion by him. Now, Morphew's attorney, a guy by the name of David Beller, nice enough guy, asserted that substantial evidence supports Mr. Morphew's innocence and highlighted his client's adherence to legal obligations, including known whereabouts during his time in Arizona. Now, while the prosecution indicates a readiness for trial, the defense continues to review extensive discovery materials measured in terabytes. There is a status conference that is now set for November 3rd of 2025. Now remember, this time Barry Morphew was indicted, so therefore he is not entitled to a preliminary hearing. The defense can file a request for probable cause review where the grand jury transcripts would be turned over to the judge. The judge would determine if there is sufficient evidence for probable cause. So it's kind of like a judge-reviewed preliminary hearing, which would be unlikely to be thrown out in any event because a grand jury, more than 12 individuals, usually 15, determined that there was probable cause to exist to charge Barry Morphew with the death of his wife, Suzanne Morphew. Now, obviously, Barry Morphew is entitled to the presumption of innocence, and he will be given that certainly by us. Next on the docket, some remains presumed to belong to Travis Decker have been discovered in the Washington wilderness months after he murdered his daughters. And, well, we can say that. All right. So police believe that they have located the remains of Travis Decker, the individual accused of killing his 3 young daughters in a remote forest region of Washington state, approximately 3 months after the incident. Now, Decker, a resident of Washington state, disappeared in early June, and after he is alleged to have suffocated his daughters, Peyton, who is only 9, Evelyn, 8 years old, and Olivia, who was only 5. Prior to a scheduled custody transfer with their mother there in Leavenworth, Washington. Now, on Thursday evening, the Chelan County Sheriff's Office reported the discovery of human remains during their sustained search operations. The location was a secluded woodland area near Leavenworth, where multiple agencies had been conducting coordinated searches for Mr. Decker. Although formal identification is pending, initial assessments indicate that the remains are those of Travis Decker, according to the statement by the sheriff. Now, the sheriff, Mike Morrison, informed local media that clothing observed lines with what Decker was known to be wearing. The site is currently under examination by the sheriff's office in collaboration with the Washington State Patrol crime scene, with their DNA testing scheduled to confirm identity shortly. Now, Decker, who was 32 at the time and a former Army veteran with service in Afghanistan, possessed significant expertise in wilderness survival, having served in the National Guard. Now, at the time of the events, he was facing disciplinary discharge from the Guard due to repeated absences. He was also experiencing homelessness and residing in his car when he collected his daughters from their mother from her residence on May 30th. Now, the daughters' bodies were discovered on June 2nd by a sheriff deputy inside Decker's truck at a nearby campground 3 days after he failed to return the daughters as scheduled. The residence of the mother is roughly about 100 miles east of Seattle. Now, as the search progressed, officials grew increasingly doubtful about Decker's survival in the wilderness. The operation involved personnel from 2 sheriff offices, the United States Marshal Service, 2 police departments, and an anthropologist from Central Washington University who employed digital mapping to expand and document the search area beyond the initial boundaries. Now, police had committed to exhaustive efforts to secure justice for the victims and their family, and Decker's former spouse, Whitney, informed investigators that she did not perceive him as a threat and believed that he maintained a positive relationship with his daughters, with whom he cared for them rather deeply. However, Decker had been contending with mental health challenges, including a recent diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. Court orders required him to undergo mental health treatment and counseling for domestic violence and anger management, which he reportedly declined to do. Now, obviously, he was never tried and convicted, but let's face it, he killed his daughters. And apparently he wasn't the survivalist that everybody made him out to be, since, who knows how long those remains have been out there in the woods for the last 3 months. My guess is it wasn't very far away. There's no indication the cause and manner of death. Was it self-inflicted? Was it, he suicided himself? Or did he just get hypothermia and die in the woods or die of starvation? That'll be an interesting fact to know. But either way, let's face it, he killed his 3 young daughters, ages 9 and 5. Horrific. Next, there's an audio recording featuring the voice of Tyler Robinson. That's right, the 22-year-old charged with the murder of Charlie Kirk. Anyway, it's been apparently this video has been posted on YouTube. The footage, which has since been removed, captured Robinson engaging in online gameplay of Minecraft with acquaintances from high school, during which he makes a lighthearted remark about a misspelling of his username, Craftin, Craftin. Now, this username appears across multiple online platforms associated with Robinson, including those related to anthropomorphic animal-themed content, commonly referred to as furry communities. Now, Robinson faces 7 charges, including murder and witness tampering, following the incident at Utah Valley University on September 12th. He made his initial appearance on September 17th of 2025. Now, the video, recorded approximately 5 years ago when Robinson was only 17, was uploaded by a user known as Yo-Yo Squiddy. In the recording, Robinson speaks with minor speech impediment, contrasting with the clearer articulation of his fellow players. The group discusses the game and exchanges some casual comments. At one juncture, Robinson addressed a player who misspelled his username as crafting, stating, "Who put a G at the end of my name? What are you, a psychopath?" He then notes an achievement in the game. Now, investigation into Robinson's online presence reveal associations with content involving anthropomorphic characters in the adult-themed scenarios. A stream account located on him indicates activity in a dating simulation game titled Furry Shades of Gay, which features themes of relationships and explicit content among humanoid animal figures. The game's description highlights 24 animated scenes. Robinson's engagement with the game resulted in acquiring an in-game item, a sticker depicting a cat-human character in a maid outfit. The username Crafton247, confirmed by Robinson's associates as his identifier on various sites, corresponds to an account on furaffinity.com, a platform dedicated to anthropomorphic art and related communities. Recent activity on this account includes viewing works by an artist known as Red Rusker, who specializes in adult-oriented anthropomorphic illustrations. Now, if you're saying, what the heck is an anthropomorphic illustration? Well, the term anthropomorphic refers to the attributions of human-like characteristics, behaviors, or emotions to non-human entities such as animals, objects, or natural phenomena. Derived from the Greek word anthropos, meaning human, and morph, form, it describes the process of imbuing non-human subjects with human traits such as speech, reasoning, or physical features like upright posture or facial expression. This concept is prevalent in literature, art, mythology, and modern media, including depictions of animals or objects with human personalities or appearances, as seen in certain online communities or creative work. Anyway, in 2023, this Red Rusker individual faced controversy within the community after earlier artwork depicting underage characters resurfaced. One such piece involved an adult anthropomorphic figure using substances to engage in acts with a younger character labeled as age 8. Apparently, Red Rusker acknowledged creating approximately a dozen such items in a public statement, expressing regret and committing to avoid similar content in the future. More recent work comes in 2024, available on associated platforms, and it continues to portray adult characters interacting with smaller, youthful figures in explicit contexts. Additionally, Robinson's Steam account lists a username of Obure, O-B-U-R-E, as a contact. Now, in January of 2024, Robinson commented on Obure's profile with a message implying distress. Obure's profile includes anthropomorphic imagery and is connected to accounts on other platforms, including Bungie and Xbox, under the name Sir Edward III. Now, in DeviantArt, Sir Edward III has produced over 587 illustrations across 6 years, amassing 1.3 million views. The works often depict female figures with exaggerated portions, focusing on themes of excessive consumption, including scenarios where characters ingest others entirely. So, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know. It's just getting weirder and weirder and weirder. We've all known people that, they went out and they pretended because they like to recreate night stuff. They dressed up and they knew that they were not knights, but they were pretending to do so. And they knew they weren't a knight, or didn't think they were, or didn't think they could transform into a knight. Or people that do, I don't know, like Civil War recreation or something along those lines. They wear the uniform, but they know they're not Civil War soldiers. They're simply just recreating the battle. I don't know. Dressing up like you're an animal, acting like you're an animal. I'm going to admit, I've heard of it. Not something that I think I would do. We'll just leave it at that. Next, some breaking information on the would-be Kavanaugh. That's right, Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh, the guy who tried to assassinate him, apparently now identifies as a woman. So attorneys for the individual charged with attempting to assassinate Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh indicate that their client now uses female pronouns and is facing a potential 30-year sentence of incarceration. So, like I said, the individual accused of plotting to assassinate Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh self-identified as a transgender woman and has exhibited severe mental health challenges, including suicidal ideation, as detailed in some recent court filings. Now, the prosecution in their filings, the Justice Department is arguing for a 30-year prison term for the now 29-year-old defendant. Now, Nicholas Roske, R-O-S-K-E, following an attempted assassination in 2022, per a recent court submission summarizing the prosecution's position, Roske entered a guilty plea in April of 2025 to the charge of attempting to murder a U.S. Supreme Court justice approximately 3 years after law enforcement apprehended him near Kavanaugh's residence with a collection of weapons and tools to break into the house. Now, a submission, a filing motion filed by Roske's legal representatives, disclosed that Roske now identifies as Sophie Roske, with defense committing to female pronouns in references. Apparently, Roske's legal team will refrain from using Roske's legal name to honor the defendant's preferences. Now, the proceeding is titled United States versus Nicholas John Roske, the attorney's notes, but this remains Miss Roske's legal designation, and no request has been made to amend the case caption. In deference to Miss Roske, the remainder of this document and the courtroom presentation will address her as Sophie and employ female pronouns. An informed source close to the proceedings apparently stated that Roske adopted the female persona online prior to the alleged assassination and currently uses the female name specified in the defense materials. That's Sophie. Attorney General Pam Bondi described the incident as political violence and characterized Roske as a disturbed individual. Now, this assault on a U.S. Supreme Court justice's life constitute an assault on the judicial framework as a whole and demands accountability, she said. The Department of Justice denounces political violence, and their legal team will pursue stringent penalties for the individual's irrational conduct. Now, the federal prosecutors contend that the imposed sentence should convey an unambiguous and resolute stance that attempted or threatened violence against judicial figures or other public officials will not be condoned and will face severe repercussions. Now, the emphasis that the penalty must adequately address the intended damage to the judiciary and underscore that repercussions ranging from 30 years to life imprisonment outweighs any ideological motivations. Now, this disclosure regarding Roske's adoption of a female name and pronouns holds relevance amid increasing incidents of violence involving transgender individuals in the United States. For instance, the suspect in the recent murder for Turning Point, Charlie Kirk, resided with a transgender partner. This event follows shortly after a 23-year-old transgender identified individual, Robin Westman, allegedly fired upon children at the Catholic school in Minneapolis during prayer. Now, the accused in Kirk's case, Tyler Robinson, like I said, shared a resident and a romantic relationship with transgender male Lance Twiggs, who had been expelled from his family's residence due to reported substance abuse and excessive gaming. These incidents have spurred demands for probes into violence and extremism linked to transgender identities. And earlier this month, Sebastian Gorka, a former deputy assistant to President Trump and senior counterterrorism director, informed the press that the updated U.S. counterterrorism plan incorporates measures addressing transgender-related violence. Now, on September 4th, the Justice Department is evaluating restrictions on firearm purchases by transgender identifying persons as part of a strategy to avert violence by those with mental instability, particularly in educational settings. Such deliberations highlight the transgender identification often involves gender dysphoria, a recognized mental condition involving distress from perceived misalignment between biological sex and gender identity. And then on Thursday, the Oversight Project advocated for the FBI to classify transgender ideology violent extremism, or TIVE, as a distinct domestic threat category and to deploy comprehensive resources to mitigate ideologically driven attacks. Now, the report indicates that Rosk presented as a trans gamer girl online. Further detailed on the gender identity remained undisclosed until now, and public attention to Rosk's case has been minimal, aside from periodic updates on legal proceedings. The recent Department of Justice filings reveal that Rosk conducted extensive research, planning, and an attempt to assassinate at least one, but targeting up to 3 active Supreme Court justices, aiming to unilaterally reshape the constitutional norms for ideological reasons. Online searches by Rosk included searches of the justices' residence, acquiring a Glock 17 handgun, ammunition, tactical accessories, gloves, non-slip footwear, restraints, pepper spray, a lock-picking kit, a screwdriver, and let's throw in a little pry bar as well. Then on March 18th of 2022, Discord messages cited in the DOJ filing where Mr. Rosk wrote, "My mental health is too poor for me to fear death, but prison sounds worse. To be monitored to the point where you can't even kill yourself. So if I did kill someone, I definitely try to get away with it." By April of 2022, searches involved shooting footage, mass casualty events, firearm procurement, and queries on high-impact assassinations. Court records also depict Rosk as actively suicidal, motivated to achieve a positive act by eliminating Kavanaugh prior to the potential Roe v. Wade reversal. Now, the justice's location was identified via online images of the residence, including his address, disseminated by leftist activists to pressure justices on abortion rights. And then in May of 2022, Politico released a leaked draft opinion indicating the Supreme Court's intent to overturn Roe v. Wade, the 1973 ruling affirming abortion rights. This disclosure incited protests at justices' homes, address publications, and Rosk's cross-country travel from California to Maryland. He said, "I was thinking about killing Brett Kavanaugh and then killing myself," Rosk told responding officers, per earlier reports. And then after texting farewell to a sibling who urged against the act, Rosk contacted emergency services. "The news upset me, and I was already suicidal," Rosk later explained to investigators, framing the plot as a project under the delusion that he could improve the world by killing Justice Kavanaugh. Post-leak DOJ records show Rosk queried combat gear 28 times and firearms over 90 times, including quietest semi-auto rifle, best silencer for Glock 17, sniper targeting preferences, Secret Service protection for justices, silent entry methods, and zip tie restraints. Sounds like he was on a mission, doesn't it, ladies and gentlemen? On Discord, Rosk queried impacts of removing specific justices on women's rights, expressing rage over potential Roe v. Wade and gay marriage reversals, noting the justices' outsized influence. Further searches covered lethal stabbing techniques, tracheal death, knife lengths, silent incapacitation methods, non-extradition nations, passport acquisition, and post-crime scenarios like prison suicide or insanity defenses. Now, for those who don't recall, Rosk traveled by air from California to Dulles Airport, there in the D.C. area, after locating Kavanaugh's home through protest imagery. Now, Politico's coverage noted the leak's potential to heighten abortion debates, marking it as unprecedented for a pending case. The outlet won a Pulitzer Prize, but did not receive the award. Now, in May, the FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino announced heightened focus on the Dobbs decision leak investigation, among others, with weekly briefings and calls for public tips. Interesting, ladies and gentlemen. Who knew? We've been following that case since 2022. Haven't covered it much on the show, but been following it. And that's the first there's been any information as to the mental health issues that the defendant, Mr. Rosk, apparently had. It also sounds like there was lots of psychological evaluations, and the defense pleadings were going to be interesting as well. And we'll also follow the sentencing. My guess is if he guidelines out about 30 years, depending on his plea agreement, he's probably going to get 30 years. You can't go around trying to assassinate public figures. You can't go around assassinating the judiciary, and particularly the United States Supreme Court justices, simply because you do not like their decisions. Hey, I'm an attorney. Some Supreme Court decisions I like, some I don't. Usually the ones I don't like include the ones where they denied cert, or, they decided the case wasn't worth taking up on cert. The bottom line is, though, you don't go and use violence like that. That's not what you do in a civilized society. Next, that singer David suddenly stopped his ongoing tour. Could it be because there was a teenager, a 15-year-old, found in the trunk of his car? So in a move that surely comes as no great surprise to those following the unfolding scandal, singer David has opted to scrap the final dates of his American tour, while police delve a little deeper into the suspicious death of a 15-year-old, a woman by the name of Celeste Arribas Hernandez, whose remains were discovered in the trunk of the Tesla of David. Now, one can only imagine the profound inconvenience this must pose to his schedule. Now, law enforcement conducted a thorough search of the artist's lavish Hollywood Hills residence on Thursday, seeking traces of blood and other incriminating materials linked to the young girl's disappearance from Lake Elsinore, California, back in April of the previous year. Now, officers departed with several evidence bags and a computer, leaving little to the imagination regarding the gravity of the suspicions. Remarkably, David, whose given name is David Anthony Burke, has yet to face any charges or arrest. His management team, in what appears to be a prudent display of caution, confirmed the cancellation of performances in San Francisco and Los Angeles, along with the scheduled appearance at the Grammy Museum. How thoughtful of them to prioritize such matters over entertainment obligations. Intriguingly, his international commitments remain intact, with a concert in Norway set for October 1, perhaps a testament to the varying standards of scrutiny across borders. This development follows the abrupt shelving of a deluxe edition of his album Withered, accompanied by the postponement of related promotions by his record label. Adding to the intrigue, newly serviced images depict David in close proximity to the deceased teenager, including a cozy snapshot in a booth where she gazes at him with evident admiration, and a January 2024 live stream featuring both individuals. The attire in one photo, a black shirt adorned with a white spider motif, bears an uncanny resemblance to what he wore during a public outing with Billie Eilish in late 2023, though such coincidences are, of course, purely incidental. Now, further fueling speculations are David's social media activities, such as his repost of a TikTok video depicting the dismemberment of deli meats at a satirical response to infidelity. Observers online have drawn pointed parallels to the manner in which Hernandez's body was found, with comments lamenting the tragedy and jesting about impending true crime documentaries. The original poster of the video hastened to clarify its unrelated humorous intent, professing ignorance of David until recent events. Compounding the narrative are artistic elements from David's catalog, a 2022 track and video entitled Romantic Homicide, showcasing a dark-haired woman strikingly similar in appearance to Miss Hernandez, and an unreleased demo from December of 2023 titled Celeste Demo Unfin. The lyrics evoke an obsessive attachment. Oh, Celeste, the girl with my named tattoo on her chest, smell her on my clothes like cigarette, and described a romantic engagement that, while not explicitly confirmed as referential, invites inevitable questions about inspiration and timing. Now, representatives for David have been contacted for clarification, though one suspects the response may prove to be elusive, as the full details of this little disturbing affair. Now, she'd been gone for a year before she was basically discovered in the trunk of the car and apparently dismembered as well. And apparently the odorous aroma coming from the car was so bad that people outside the car could smell it. And of course, it makes you wonder, gee, did he maybe just have so many cars that he didn't know, hey, where's my Tesla? Did I loan my Tesla to somebody? I haven't seen my Tesla in a while. I wonder where my Tesla is. And nobody bothered to ask. Interesting. Well, we'll have to see, if there are charges in the future. Obviously, he is entitled to the presumption of innocence. Next, a wannabe stuntman leaps over a rising bridge, just like in the movies. So this so-called epic evasion got caught on security cameras at the Seattle's University Bridge on Wednesday because, of course, every fool needs an audience. Now, in a move straight out of a bad action flick, the kind where logic takes a permanent vacation, a thief zipping around in a hot-wired Audi Q5 pulled off what they probably thought was a brilliant escape from Seattle's finest. About 12:20 p.m. local time on Wednesday, officers from the Seattle Police Department spotted the boosted SUV near 10th Avenue East and Roanoke Street and kicked off a chase as relayed by a detective by the name of Brian Pritchard to the Seattle Times. Road cams from the Seattle Department of Transportation revealed the vehicle swerving into oncoming lanes on the University Bridge, dodging parked cars like it was auditioning for a demolition derby, based on a snippet from the local television station. Now, the driver then plowed right through the protective railing and hurled across the still widening split in the drawbridge as it lazily descended per the video. Now, a parade of police cars in hot pursuit screeched to a halt just shy of the mangled barrier, with officers casually stepping out to gawk at the spectacle. Now, during the stunt, the bridge's twin sections were nearly, but hilariously not quite back in place over the Portage Bay, and cops, being the sensible types, weren't about to mimic the idiocy, as Detective Pritchard pointed out to the press. Oh, please, this isn't Hollywood, he scoffed, emphasizing we'd never pull something that reckless. Proving once again, ladies and gentlemen, you simply cannot make this stuff up. Now, the lawmen ultimately found the car, and they noted that the trashed SUV was eventually discovered forsaken near Pasadena Place Northeast and Northeast 42nd Street in the University District. It boasted fresh scars of the underside, according to reports. Somehow the perpetrator slipped the net even after police deployed a chopper that afternoon. Neither the Seattle Department of Transportation nor the Seattle Police Department bothered to reply right away. What can you do, ladies and gentlemen? What can you do? You can't make this stuff up. Jumping bridges to get away from the police, and the police can't get him. I bet the police will be swabbing the steering wheel in that car as well as the shifter for DNA samples and hunting this guy down. My guess is he's going to be in the CODIS system, just a guess, and they're going to find him as well. Next on the docket, in a truly astonishing turn of events that no one could have foreseen, one of the intrepid Brooklyn Bodega clerks involved in a deadly altercation with a supposed pillar of the community insists it was all in self-defense against this exemplary citizen who graciously threatened to effing kill them. Now, Kevin Mello, the ever-vigilant employer at the Royal Deli and Grill, shared his thoughts how Jerry Hill, the model of decorum, dramatically stormed onto the establishment on Monday evening, only to escalate matters delightfully, then politely requesting to tone down his enthusiastic outbursts. Now, according to Mello's riveting account, Hill proclaimed with utmost charms, "I want to fight you. I'm going to effing kill you. Any one of you come outside and fight." Armed with nothing more than threatening than a cup of coffee as a precautionary measure. Brilliant foresight. Really? Mello set it aside, assuming the gentleman was departing peacefully. But in a plot twist worthy of admiration, Hill instead delivered a punch, igniting what can only be described as a heroic brawl. "I seized him and he toppled onto me as we engaged in this noble struggle," Mello recounted with evident humility. Upon rising, I noticed the blood everywhere and assumed it was mine. I retreated to the restroom to tend to myself, only to discover it belonged to him. What a relief. In the midst of this elegant exchange, a fellow clerk thoughtfully intervened, delivering blows to Hill's head with a baton, as confirmed by police. Now, the 59-year-old Bushwick resident, ever the resilient soul, managed to exit the premises and head home before being transported to the hospital, where he unfortunately expired. What timing. Mello, age 48, conveniently missed witnessing his colleagues Mukhel Shalibi in action, being preoccupied at the base of the fray. Post-conflict, Shabibi displayed the implement he used, a fractured stick originally employed for ice-breaking duties. Mello noted as if such details elevate the narrative. Now, although the pair has undergone police interrogation, charges remain conspicuously absent. How utterly predictable in these scenarios. Now, Hill's rap sheet boasts an impressive 26 arrests, with the latest in July for allegedly assaulting someone, clearly the mark of a reformed individual. Local anecdotes paint him as a delightful disruptor, ever eager to enliven the neighborhood. A confidant revealed on Thursday that Hill occasionally exhibited a little aggression, particularly after a job loss compounded by a little substance and psychological challenges. Because, hey, who hasn't been there, right? Anyway, the same associate mentioned a prior skirmish at the deli a month earlier, resulting in a ban. Yet Hill's return suggests unparalleled loyalty to the venue. I can't fathom his motivation for revisiting the longtime acquaintance pondered. He must have been under the influence. In those states, his aggression was simply radiant. Hill endured 3 profound lacerations to his head and grew increasingly frail en route home, claiming the clerks ambushed him, such as a balanced perspective. His brother and roommate urged hospitalization. The friend elaborated. He resisted, insisting he was fine. They warned of potential internal hemorrhages as his strength waned. Tragically, Hill lost consciousness half an hour after arriving home, a masterclass in stubborn independence. The acquaintance advocates for charges, opining with profound wisdom. No one merits such an end. There are proper protocols. As upstanding professionals, not vigilantes, one should merely repel the intruder and summon authorities. Secure a restraining order thereafter. Simplicity itself. The investigation continues, no doubt uncovering further layers of this exemplary tale, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, once again proving you can't make this stuff up. Next on the docket, this day in legal history. On September 19th, 1881, the death of James Garfield, the 20th President of the United States and former lawyer who succumbed to wounds from an assassination attempt, highlighting issues in presidential security and as well as, who's going to take over next. Next, Lord Ha-Ha, sentenced to death for broadcasting Nazi propaganda. On September 19th, 1945, a British court sentenced to death American-born William Joyce, known as Lord Ha-Ha, for his Nazi propagandists during the World War II. Now, Joyce was hanged on January 6, 1946. On this date in 1952, the United States bars filmmaker Charlie Chaplin from re-entering the country amid McCarthy-era investigations, raising First Amendment and immigration law issues. This date in 1969, UCLA fired Professor Angela Davis for her communist affiliations. That decision was overturned later in a subsequent court. And then on September 19th, 2002, President George Bush gave a speech to Congress requesting broad authority to invade Iraq and disarm Saddam Hussein. And we all know how that turned out. Still looking for those weapons of mass destruction, aren't we? And our legal quote of the day goes back to Plautus, 184 BC. And here we go. One eyewitness is worth more than 10 who tell what they have heard. It almost sounds like the initial precursor to hearsay, isn't it? That's why you only have witnesses testify as to what they saw or what they heard, not what somebody else told them that they thought they heard. Even back in 184 BC, common sense was still ongoing. And finally, today, ladies and gentlemen, our dumb criminal of the day. What a bunch of heroes to snag a felony featuring Florida's finest wannabe vigilantes. That's right. Yes, nothing screams justice like a bunch of barley legal bros playing pretend cops in the dead of night. Now, according to police reports, 5 brilliant minds from Florida are now staring in their own criminal lineup after they decided to rough up and lock down a guy they tricked into showing up for what he thought was a shady hookup with an underage person. Now, this genius operation went down about 2 a.m. last Friday at a rented spot in Largo, Florida. The poor sap got baited through some sketchy app and online scam, thinking he was in for an illicit rendezvous. Instead, he walks in and gets shoved onto the sofa with his charming commands like, plant your butt and zip it, because manners are for losers. Anyway, one of these self-appointed Avengers slapped a chokehold on him and from behind, while the rest formed a lovely circle of intimidation, hurling threats about calling the real police. How ironic. They pinned him there, unable to escape, and took turns pummeling him as he pathetically begged for mercy. What a noble cause. Anyway, highlight of the evening. 19-year-old Matthew Quayle grabbed some clippers and forcefully buzzed the guy's head just to crank up the humiliation factor. The whole crew kept at it, forcing him into unspecified embarrassing stunts while spewing their threats. Because, you know, that's how you fight crime, by becoming the criminals, apparently. And let's not forget the entrepreneurial spirit. They filmed the whole fiasco, planning to cash in by posting it on some unnamed site for public gawking and profit, all without bothering to ask the victim for permission. Was it live? Who knows? The report keeps that juicy detail under wraps. Rounding out this all-star cast, we got Roland Relage, Errol Hasharova, Dylan Gentry, and Andrew or Isa. Each is slapped with felony false imprisonment, plus extras like battery or robbery for some. Isa gets a special shout out for felony child neglect after dragging a kid along to the sting at the spot, potentially crawling with a sex offender wannabe. Turns out the minor was in on it, got arrested too, and even popped up in the video. Now, Isa, listed as the kid's guardian, really nailed that responsible adult vibe, didn't he? Anyway, these paragons of virtue bonded out of jail by Sunday with a stern judicial finger wag to stay away from their target, because clearly they've learned their lesson about vigilante justice, or have they? Stay tuned. We're going to see if there's going to be a sequel. Ladies and gentlemen, you can't take the law into your own hands like that. You may not like what somebody was doing or gonna do or wanted to do. I get it. But you can't beat them up when you get there and videotape it. Really bad. Really bad. You know, not saying you should do that, but if you did, you'd probably want to keep it on the lowdown, fewest people as possible, and not videotape it. Just saying. Not counseling anybody to do anything like that. Don't do it. Don't break the law. But think next time. You are all dumb criminals of the day. Congratulations, you made it. And you may get a felony out of it too. So that's felony stupid. All right, that's all we have for you today, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you enjoy the weekend. Have a wonderful weekend. And remember, the Constitution matters.